Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Hard Things Podcast. This is your host, Blaine Burgess. We got episode 80 on the docket today. It's been a while, I think too long. Recently, I started doing episodes every 2 weeks, and getting off that weekly cadence, you kind of, things get pushed around a little bit. I also have a new podcast, Gandhi Revival, which is my chiropractic podcast. I see that, progressing into the future professionally, and this one still being my kind of personal diary. A lot of audio, maybe one day transcribed into words. Maybe someday someone will use it to make a deep fake of me. Maybe my kids, my grandkids, and whoever else will listen to it. Irregardless, I just like this medium, and I don't know, long form podcasts and interviews specifically. I think I want to start doing some more interviews. I don't know if the personal podcast will make that here, but Gandhi Revival, I'm doing an episode right after this episode I record, and that kind of finishes the first 12 episodes of that one. And I'll be in kind of unknown territory. I'll just be talking about chiropractic at that point. Hopefully interviewing some folks, keeping it interesting and entertaining. And speaking of interesting and entertaining, that was my 2-minute filibuster on this podcast. So this being Hard Things, we're going to get back into my own personal musings and thoughts about life. I got a series on world leaders who were assassinated, essentially. There was a lot. There's a lot here. The more, this episode is a little bit more delayed than I would have liked, because I think there's just so much content I'm getting into. So we have so far an episode about John F. Kennedy. We got Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King got me into Malcolm X, and the contrast between those two got me into Gandhi, nonviolence, the foundation of that. And of course, if you talk about civil rights, you can talk about Lincoln, kind of the pre-civil rights guy, Emancipation Proclamation, kind of starting a chain of events that led to, people getting full votes, women getting votes. Obviously having to fight for, a human being. I feel like if you have a heartbeat in your chest, you're of a certain age, you should probably be able to vote in a democracy. If that's really the best system overall, that's a topic for another day. But in the system we currently have, everyone should have a vote. We got Lincoln, and then if you take it back all the way to kind of a famous Shakespearean assassination, you got Caesar, and then I think, in a way, I think the end of this series, I'm not going to say who the last person is, but possibly more famous than Caesar or anyone else in this lineup of people. So once again, these are all, political, historical figures that were assassinated, and this series of episodes is all about, it's about safety. I hear a lot of common threads in discourse on life, whether it's talking about, whether it's women talking about feeling safe with their partner, feeling safe walking late at night, feeling safe in a community of other women, or men, we talk about the Me Too movement and good men who are just trying to assert their interests, versus bad men who are trying to get away with horrible things. I think it's, essentially like overreactions, fear of trouble, violence, leads us to overreactions. And today's subject is Gandhi. Gandhi was killed by a Hindu, I guess you could say extremist. I don't want to put too many labels on this guy I don't even know. But murdered Gandhi purportedly for being chill about Muslims. Essentially, when India was unified under the British flag, Muslims were a minority in India, but they did have a strong, leader, someone that Gandhi worked with a lot, and Gandhi showed tolerance. He was very adamant about being tolerant, like saying that Hindus and Christians and Catholics and Muslims, like they all were under God. And especially in the movie adaptation I watched, he used God like interchangeably, and I think he did it in his writings. I think the movie was true to who Gandhi was, and Gandhi was a lawyer that was trained in Great Britain, and just with that background, his status as an Indian man, and then his travels across the world, notably in South Africa, where racial tensions, with apartheid, everything, have always been an issue. And South Africa just being the tip of the world, essentially, pretty close to Antarctica, pretty far away from everything else. It's just like a heck of a story, a heck of a life. To go to the tip of the world and kind of put it all on the line when he could have easily been killed far sooner, I think just speaks to the strength of his character. And all of these characters, felt danger at one point or another. And that's why this whole thing about safety is, a lot of times doing the right thing can make you unsafe. Doing the wrong thing can also make you unsafe. And prioritizing safety, strangely enough, can make you unsafe, because really the only thing you can do, like, to minimize danger is to actually do the right thing, which could ironically put you in an extreme amount of danger in the short term. So you kind of have to look at it from the lens of like, each moment is a slice. So how much danger do I have right now in this moment? And be honest with yourself about it, and not let your amygdala take over. Not let social media tell you that we're in danger. And then think about it every moment. Like, you can use days or months or years. Like, in reality, today we're not in a whole lot of physical danger compared to the past. The danger has shifted, in my opinion, to a mental danger, a psychic danger, which I think, the tragedies that have happened of like losing people to violence over many, many years, we now kind of understand, like, okay, we can shake hands and not be physically violent, but now it's a little bit overcrowded on Earth, and violence hasn't gone away. It's just morphed into psychic attacks, which I think is a really interesting response to kind of what Gandhi had started. So Gandhi, probably the most impressive thing that I heard in the movie This is the quote. He said, "Where there's injustice, I always believed in fighting. The question is, do you fight to change things or to punish? For myself, I found we're all such sinners, we should leave punishment to God. If we really want to change things, there are better things than derailing trains or slashing someone with a sword." Back then, this is like World War I time, turn of the 20th century, I believe. You know, physical violence, World War I, World War II are some of the most physically violent events in human history. And I think World War I especially. And it's interesting to think, I think it's easy to think of violence in this way. Physical violence, you see someone physically harming someone. And, you know, it's kind of easy to spot. Oftentimes leaves clues. The person's bruised, they have lacerations, visibly shaking. There's all kinds of horrific, reactions to physical violence. And I think humanity at large has suffered enough, whether it be from wartime or peacetime, where we've had enough violence, we've felt it, and we know that this isn't really, the right thing. And my old professor from Harvard, he wrote Better Angels of Our Nature. I think his research shows that physical violence is at an all-time low. But that negative half of humanity lurks in the shadows. So it may not be overtly, it may not be physical violence that's happening. But there is still violence in the world. And I think, there's always going to be injustice, like the quote said, in life. And I think no matter what, physical violence isn't useful. And there's enough physical danger just in our environment that could cause damage to us that, we should worry about healing people that run into that, like fall off of a steep ledge, like doing something athletic, and someone tears an ACL, stuff like that. That's already bad enough. And there may be violent moments in sport, but as long as it's kept in the confines of competition, I think it's just something that humans have always done, and it's just like a part of being here, and we can just choose to not do it when it's not kind of sanctioned. It's one thing if it's UFC and people are watching two people fight for millions of dollars and they've agreed to be there, okay, fine. But I think what's replaced it in some senses is worse because you can't see it. It's what we call in chiropractic an occult issue. So there's plenty of things such as, poverty, economics as a weapon. It's funny, I always watch Batman Begins, and they talk about trying to destroy Gotham. In the movie, they're using physical violence, and like chemical weapons to try to do it. But they said their first attempt was with economics, just the thought of economics, and applying it to a city and seeing people drive each other crazy financially. In a lot of ways, our world is set up so, a handful of people win kind of a lottery ticket and control everything else. We're all clamoring for that lottery ticket. And when you get the lottery ticket, you use it to kind of squeeze, your other human beings with you on the planet. And I think that's a form of violence we have to watch out for. I think like one thing that dating and relationships has taught me is uh, psychic violence, or even physical acts that don't involve you being used as leverage. Maybe a woman that's upset, kisses your best friend, and that's extremely upsetting. That's a lot of psychic pain, psychic damage. It can't really be accounted for or seen. And actions like that are damaging. I think you could take someone's vitals like blood pressure, measure things like HRV, heart rate variability, things like that people who have experienced physical violence and abuse, and people that have been betrayed by a partner, or even just, based on values and things we want out of life, to have someone know everything about you and then kind of put you in a mental vice grip of like, hey, well, if you want this thing, then you're going to do this thing or else. It sounds like simple, like, oh, okay, well, just don't deal with that person. But, I've personally been in situations where I have had, deep feelings for a person. And it's an opportunity, a unique opportunity to, try to get someone to heal, essentially. Like, the reason they're doing those things is what we talked about before, the fear. They're fighting to punish. They're fighting to get their way. And, in our relationships, we should strive, especially when we care about people, we should strive to say, like, hey, I understand what you're trying to do, and I want to let you know this doesn't work for me, but I am willing to try to change things. Like, I'm willing to come to a compromise. I'm willing to try to figure out a third option. And just trying to hold to that in a situation where almost like it's kind of strange. You kind of know that they're trying to manipulate you. I've just noticed this a lot in today's day and age. Is like, it's you can talk about dating again, or even just friends, but like talking about ghosting. So ghosting is easy to see when someone just doesn't respond. And a lot of times it's like someone you maybe went on 1 or 2 dates on, you had a little spark, and then they just disappear. Well, that's decently easy to handle. But when you have a friend, I think almost what's worse is when you have a friend who will continue meeting you on the surface level. And maybe at one point you've, kind of been there for them in a tough time. And, the relationship kind of escalated a little bit, like, hey, we got a little bit closer. And then you need a friend, and they just don't show up. I think that is a lot of what's happening in today's world for one reason or another. But I think the core of the reasons is fear. So I say all this to come back to Gandhi and talk about courage. This man, time and time again, had to bank on the fact that essentially the country of India loved him. As a lawyer, he goes to South Africa. He builds himself a reputation of being kind of a freedom finder, using nonviolent means to create change. And when you're in these situations like the ones I described, it's the toughest thing. You have to protect yourself. while also morally showing up, and you kind of get battered a little bit, you know. And again, it's not physical violence, but I think the effects on the body, HRV, blood pressure, things like I said, it affects the brain, which affects the thalamus, which affects everything. And it's still abuse. And it's really, really hard to quantify. It requires people to be honest. And if someone is honestly suffering because of something someone else did to them, physically or mentally, or emotionally, like, that needs to be addressed and taken into account. But it's also not an excuse. Like, I think we have to, like, try to be there for people as they transcend that, as they alchemize that. But you can't let them, like, you being there for them, you can't let them put it on you. And a lot of times it's like a game of hot potato, invisible hot potato. You know, you're like in this really intense, you know, friendship or, you know, whatever with someone, and they have this hot potato, it's burning their hands. You're like, hey, we really got to get you some oven mitts. And they're just like, here you go. And they toss it at you, and you don't want to mishandle it, but you don't want to burn your hands either, and you don't have oven mitts yet. So you can drop the potato, which is like a ghost kind of scenario. You can catch it and burn your hands, and now you're compromised also. Now everyone's just hurting. Or we can just do our best to just have oven mitts on hand. You got to find the oven mitts sooner rather than later. And I think that's what Gandhi was able to do. You know, he, through nonviolent effort, painstakingly creating oven mitts, you know, he just was not afraid. You know, he put his oven mitt on, which is, for him, it's a loincloth. He literally, like, dressed like the peasants in India to basically show solidarity. And yeah, he showed up places, was arrested. He led all kinds of demonstrations. You know, he marched to the sea, threatened the British Empire to make salt, and they had a salt monopoly, and he was like, nope, we're going to make salt and sell it. A bunch of people got arrested. He'd go on hunger strikes when his own people were demonstrating and using violence. He would go on a hunger strike until they stopped being violent. So this man was just like the ultimate oven mitt. And as I get older, I realize, like, all the oven mitts in the older generation are tired. And the, you know, young kids, there might be some oven mitts, but they're like in this world of technology and the older oven mitts getting tired, you know, it just calls on people around my age, you know, probably 30 to 50, to just figure it the fuck out and get some oven mitts. And I felt a call to this oven mitt lifestyle. And in trying to step up into it, you know, you get burned. You put your first pair of oven mitts on, and the heat's a little too hot. Get burned through the mitts. And you got to just double them up and get back in the game, because nobody else is going to do it. I think that's kind of like the realization as you get into adulthood, is like, you know, the adults don't know what the fuck they're doing, and the kids aren't going to do it. So for a short amount of time, maybe like the next 20 years, it'll be my job to be the best oven mitt I can be, and find the next oven mitt and get them trained up. And I think the more of us that get that kind of Teflon, maybe a ceramic oven mitt, something just really strong that is, kind of indestructible, the better off humanity's going to be. I think right now we have maybe some easy times that are being made hard by this invisible kind of psychic, spiritual drama. And we're going to go through some stuff. I don't know what it is. Can't make any predictions for you, but I just have this sense that I need to get my oven mitt ready. Be able to protect myself, be able to protect people I care about. And on the other side of it, hopefully there'll be a lot more people with oven mitts ready to roll. And I'll be there. And thankfully, having people like JFK, Martin Luther King, Gandhi, and some of the others I'll talk about in the future, having them as, people to look up to, people that made a stand, typically more than once, enough to piss somebody off enough so that they were assassinated. The forces of evil will always be out there. And you just got to do your work, build your oven mitt, love your people, and keep going. That's really the answer. So I had fun researching Gandhi. Right now I'm watching a show called Genius. There was a whole thing about Albert Einstein, which he was almost on this list. The Nazis almost found a way to take him out when he was in Germany as a Jew before World War II really popped off. So thankfully they got him out of there, got him to Princeton, where he could keep doing work and all that. But yeah, this Genius show, the 4th season, I skipped 2 seasons. I think one was about Picasso, and I don't know what the 3rd one was, but 4th season is a hybrid MLK Malcolm X. And those 2 guys couldn't be more different. It's kind of funny. I don't know how truthful this is. I think the show is mostly truthful, but some of the dialogue has been spiced up. The big facts are true, but the dialogue might not be. But there's one point where I think it was actually in an interview, so this is probably true, but Malcolm X calls Martin Luther King and Uncle Tom, and basically just criticizing nonviolence, whereas Malcolm X was in the Nation of Islam, and they were kind of a little bit more militant, definitely still had violence on the table. It's a great, if you look at Martin Luther King and his inspiration by Gandhi, and you look at JFK when he was being elected, kind of swooped in to get Martin Luther King out of jail at one point, in the versus Nixon in the election. He came in and helped Martin Luther King out, and they organized a march on Washington, and JFK kind of tried to control it a little bit, but also was shepherding it in a way too, in a way that I can only imagine for a white president at that point to try to kind of help, but also, you don't want a massive violent riot on the Washington Mall during your presidency. That's a bad look. I mean, Donald Trump figured that out. So, those guys kind of working together, you just see how that works. And regardless, whether, you're Malcolm X, who kind of advocated some violence, especially in terms of retaliation, versus these other guys who advocated nonviolence, the end result was the same. It was assassination. So if you think about what you want your life to be like, what you want it to be about, if the end result is the same, if I knew the day I was going to die in the cause, I would just try to do as much good as I can between now and then. So I don't know the cause and the end and the day, the time, or whatever. but my approach should still be the same, regardless of if I know or not. So I think the JFK, the Gandhi, the Martin Luther King, I think they had it more figured out, in my opinion. And Malcolm X was, he took on more damage. You know, he didn't have oven mitts as early as maybe some of the other guys. And he got burned one too many times to where he couldn't maybe overcome that violent impulse like the other guys did. It's a very difficult thing to do. So the Malcolm X thing is very, very interesting to me. It's another perspective, and he's going to be the 4th episode. And in all the cycles of my show, it's kind of tailored in with the chakras. So the 4th episode in this series being the heart chakra. The heart is a funny thing because it's the source of a great amount of love, but when the heart is jilted, the underside of that, it's kind of envy, it's violence, it's retaliation, and that's kind of the Malcolm X was such a positive and uplifting, transformation as he went to jail. He was into some bad things. He got into the Nation of Islam, found devotion and all these like really positive qualities, and still just that violence just lingered. And I think in all of us, it can linger in your heart. It can come out at inopportune times when a different choice would be better. So yeah, that's what you have to look forward to. So Gandhi, this episode is a wrap, but he's kind of the OG nonviolent king. That's understating it, to be honest. But I will leave you with this on this episode. Ask yourself, when you're taking an action, are you fighting to change things, or are you trying to punish someone, including yourself? Are the actions I'm taking, am I trying to change things, or am I looking to punish someone? And I think for myself, in my life, I've spent a long time punishing myself for not reaching a standard that is just impossible. You got to hold yourself to impossible standards so that you can try to be great. But when you fall short, you have to love yourself anyways, and forgive yourself and not punish yourself. And always choose to fight to change things. Like I would say right now, a lot of what I talked about in this episode, interpersonal relationships, just kind of the state of how America is, maybe the world. I don't like what I see, and I don't intend to punish anyone about it. I want to try to fight to change things, especially in the world of chiropractic. I think it's almost like a stalemate. Like there's so many people that want to be famous, want to be the top chiropractor. And people are on social media popping joints and, looking to get people to come to their practice and get rich and all these things. And like, I think all of that takes care of itself when you just do the work. And the best chiropractors out there, the pioneers of chiropractic, they were just trying to do the work. They were getting arrested like Gandhi. They were, fighting the medical establishment for the right to practice. And they were just like feeling lucky to be there. I think if a lot of us just felt lucky to practice and did a really good job, like all the stuff that we want that's driving us would just happen as a byproduct of excellence. So when I say I'm fighting to change things, I can't control what other people are doing, but I can try to be excellent myself. I can try to connect with people and set an example. And that's going to take probably a really long time. It's going to take a lot longer than, like, I feel like we need it now. But we're not going to get it now. We're going to have to wait. We're going to have to do our work and keep moving. So, with that, that's my soapbox. I'm going to hop off it now. This has been the Gandhi episode. Until next time, get ready for Malcolm X, and I'll see y'all there.